It's quite common in a multi-cat household for you to take one cat to the vet, bring them home, and then find they've suddenly had a massive bust up with your other cat that's left at home. Being a behaviourist, this is something that I see all the time, and sometimes, sadly, it's been a permanent breakdown. We haven't been able to get those cats back on track. So today I'm going to tell you how to stop your cats from falling out after a visit from the vet clinic. So let's get started. So this is something that we almost take for granted in that I have two cats, both of them are 15, and for their whole lives, I've only taken one to the vet at a time and brought them back with no issues. I've not given it a second thought. Like, I know these things happen, but I've been like, well, my cats get on. We're not going to have this issue. It's totally fine. Until a couple of years ago, Sparks had a couple of teeth out. So he was in for the whole day. And when he came back, I did my usual, open the carrier, and Fig hissed at him. And it was the first time it's ever happened. And it was only a hiss, to be fair. It wasn't a falling out. They didn't have a fight. There was no sort of bust up. But it's the first time Fig's ever hissed at Sparks in that scenario. So it did make me realise, even after 13 years of being best friends, if the circumstances are right or wrong, then this can happen to any cats at any time. So I'm going to tell you why, but also the solution to it is easy. So let's get started with the whys. So firstly is they come back smelling weird. So they've been to the vets, they've been there all day, and they've had different operations done, they might have had different medicines, they've been handled, and they just come back smelling totally weird. So this is difficult for two reasons. So firstly, cats will recognize each other as members of the same social group using scent. So they'll mark each other and they'll smell nice and they'll smell familiar. So they've lost that when they come back. So it's like, well, you look like Sparks, but you don't smell like him. And is this right? And it just makes them a little bit suspicious and a little bit unsure. That paired with the fact that the smell they do smell of now is the place where your other cat might have been, the vet clinic, where they don't like it. They're anxious, they're scared about that for the most part. So, as well as just not smelling right, they actually smell terrible and are reminding your cat of somewhere where they don't want to be either. Secondly, is that when you bring your cat home from the clinic, you might notice that their behaviour is very different. So, this is going to change depending on what's actually up with your cat, what they've gone for treatment for. But for Sparks, what I noticed is that the vet had said to me that he's on medication and he's going to be sleepy for the rest of the day. But what actually happened is he came back and he was absolutely wired. So his eyes were super wide and he was manic. He was pacing through all the rooms, he was vocalizing, and he definitely didn't settle for a long time. So Fig was looking at him again, thinking, well, you look like Sparks, but you're not acting anything like him. And it was putting him out, it was upsetting him. So this is going to be different if your cat it comes home in pain, if they have a long like an illness they need to get over, then their behavior is going to be different. So it could be that they've come back absolutely manic like mine, or it could be more that they're less active and they're more subdued and they're hiding away and they're less tolerant to the other cat because they might be in pain. So it might be that normally they're okay with the other cat coming over and snuggling up next to them, but actually I'm in pain here, I'm trying to recover, so they're not in the mood for that. And that can cause the cat that's been to the vet to hiss at the one that stayed at home, or to swipe at them, or to run away from them. So it could be either side. It could be the cat that's left at home that's suddenly like, you don't smell right. Or it could be the cat that's had the treatment done and is like, I'm not okay, I just want to be on my own. So we need to take both of these into account. And lastly, is something I didn't really appreciate until this experience, is that when I got the carrier out for Sparks, Fig was suspicious. He thought he was going. He was anxious. He didn't want to go. So he's diabetic and he goes to the vets quite often and he's not a fan. So he knew that when I got the carrier out, it could have meant that actually he was going to the vet. And the same when I brought him back. So it's just a reminder that although he's not ill and your cat left at home is not the one that's poorly and doesn't need any vet intervention, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're in a really good frame of mind. They might be feeling anxious themselves, and that might mean they're less tolerant to the other cat and more tetchy. And the scope for this to spiral into a fight or a negative interaction is quite high when you consider all three things. So what we can do to prevent this is actually pretty simple. So the first thing I would recommend is bringing your carrier into the house. So let's make the cat carrier part of the territory and a safe space for them, rather than something scary that you bring in only to go to the vets. So this is going to remove any sort of initial anxiety that both cats will feel, even if it's only one cat that's going to the vet. Secondly, when you bring your cat home from the vets, I would recommend keeping them separate. So how long to keep them separate depends on what you've had done. So if it's just a checkup and they've had nothing really done, they've just had a vaccination or an examination, then this might just be for a couple of hours. Let's give time for the smell to wear off, their behavior to get back to normal, and things to just be quite normal. But if they've had something more substantial done, or they are poorly, or they are still having medication and it's affecting their behavior, then you might want to keep them separate for longer. Here, I would prioritize focusing on the recovery of your cat that's gone to the clinic, because obviously they're physically unwell and we need to help them feel better. But so that will help. And then the separation will also, again, give them time for your resident cat to settle down and the behavior and smell to return back to normal. So it could be that you give it overnight, you could give it a few days, but judge it based on your cat's behavior. If they're happy being separated, then you don't need to worry about how long that takes, because they're happy and that's fine. If you find that they're desperate to get in and out of the room or get back to each other, then you could probably speed things along a little bit more. But they definitely need a little bit of time for the smells to subside and them to get back to their normal behavior, business as usual. Something that I wouldn't recommend is taking both cats to the vets when only one needs treatment. So I get the idea behind this. Like, if they both go together, then they'll both smell weird. They'll both be recovering from their traumatic experience, and they shouldn't sort of worry about the other one. However, like if your cats both need vaccinations at the same time or around the same sort of time, then I would definitely take them together if it works out. But what I worry about here is that you might solve this problem in that they may not fall out, but you might cause other issues later down the line. So personally for me, I wouldn't want to take Fig to Sparks's vet appointments, because Fig goes to the vets quite a lot. He's diabetic. It's really important that he has good veterinary health care, and I don't want to be adding in unnecessary vet trips for him, because I'm worried that, what if we see a dog, or what if the experience is particularly horrible for him for whatever reason, whatever things might go wrong during the visit. So I don't want to risk that. The same for Sparks. If I had to take him to every one of Fig's vet appointments, then that's going to be much more traumatic for him than it needs to be. So I'm not going to risk that, and I wouldn't recommend everybody does risk this problem to prevent the falling out of if you just take one, because I feel like that can be prevented with a little period of separation. So I hope that makes sense. That was a bit rambly, wasn't it? But this problem is so horrible. And like I say, I've seen cats where it's been an absolute permanent breakdown. So judge it based on your cats at home. Like, you know them better than anyone. Sometimes it can just take that little period of separation just to bring down those stress levels, help them smell a little bit normal, and get them back on track. But if your cats are struggling to get on, or you're noticing some fighting, then you can watch this video to help them get along a bit better. But otherwise, I will see you another day for a different video. Take care.